Hey guys, it's Wexdarn here, and welcome to part 2 of Let's Play Legend of Zelda. In the last episode we kind of grabbed all the upgrades we can get at this point, except for the ones that are really expensive. And in this episode we're actually going to take on at least at least two dungeons. They feel really mean for sort of stinging you out on no dungeons last episode. Hopefully 3, but at least 2. Alright, this is level 1, as you can see by the thing in the top left. Now the thing about this dungeon is right here, the starting door. If you exit and then immediately go back in, the door actually unlocks itself. It's a weird glitch and it only happens in this dungeon, but you know what, I kind of like it. It's a cool little thing to help you start going. Now these bat-like enemies are actually called keys, and that's your first example of the situation. It's kind of common in this game. Defeat all the enemies in a room to get a key. The keys are actually incredibly weak and pretty harmless, I'd say. But still, you need to take care of them. Now, in this game you will actually get an abundance of keys. Like, you're not limited to the amount of... Like, the amount of doors in a dungeon is not necessarily the amount of keys that you get. And if you're quite smart, you can actually come out of the dungeon with a lot of spare keys, so you can use them on the later dungeons, because keys aren't necessarily dungeon specific as they are in later games. So yeah, as long as you've got a key on you, you can open pretty much any door. These skeleton enemies I've been taking out are called Stalfos. They're much stronger in like the 3D games, but here they're pretty weak. You can see me just tearing them apart with one hit from the white sword. Another little aspect about this game is that if you're in a room and there's actually an adjacent room but there's no doors there, sometimes you can actually bomb through to the other room. And that can really save you a lot of keys if you're trying to stock up on them. But it does come at the expense of bombs, and at the start you can only carry 3 bombs. So, no, 8 bombs. Why am I saying 3 bombs? But yeah, it does come at a kind of a price, but if you know where you're going, you can save a lot of keys. I'm not trying to do any sort of specific speed run or maximum keys run or anything like that. I'm just playing through the game and getting the items that you need to complete the dungeon. That's about it. Right, thank you, I guess. Let's see, I want to go back through here and head north. Now you may not notice in this room I actually picked up a piece of paper. That actually serves our dungeon map, which at the moment you can see like in the centre the rooms that we've been in, and in the bottom left is actually the layout of the dungeon as a whole. It's kind of cool to see like that though, because each of the dungeons is actually named after what shape they make. In this case it's an eagle dungeon, so you can kind of make like an eagle facing left, like that's its chest sort of puffing out and that's a wing behind it, so it's kind of cool. Anyway, see, in this room we need to take out these guys. These are Gorias. Gorias like to throw boomerangs and they can be pretty annoying, but not too bad. We've got a key from them. And I think these in this game are simply called traps. In other games they get different names like spike traps or anti-fairies, but these are just called traps here. Basically Link walks in front of them, they fly towards each other. Simple. Yeah. Well, if you ever see a layout like this, it's always this block. Trust me, it's always that block. Right, take out the keys. And here we have a bow, but we don't have any arrows for it, because the arrows are actually items you have to purchase, and then after you purchase them you need to pay 1 rupee for every arrow that you fire, which in a way makes me think that Link's actually using rupees as ammo. But hey, if you're really lucky with like enemy drops getting a bunch of rupees, then you can be pretty effective with your arrow, and it is probably the best range weapon in the game. So, you know, it's something to consider. Just wandering back through these dungeons after you cleared out enemies, though. And I can't believe we got stuck on the door there, but Link controls semi-awkwardly in this game. See, I think these are called bits. And as usual, I'll have something on the screen correcting me if I'm wrong, but I think those are called bits, and like the bigger ones are called Zells, and they're just very weak enemies, but they're kind of quick, so they can chip away just a little bit. Now right here, we're actually getting our first proper ranged weapon after the candle, which is the boomerang, or the croissant. But the cool thing about the boomerang is that you can actually throw it in 8 directions, rather than just up, down, left and right. It can also go diagonally. So, you know what, it's a really cool like design thing, but it's just a shame Link can't move in all 8 directions, but his boomerang can. Right here we have Wall Masters, and a nice little subtle detail which is kind of cool is like when you're one room away from the boss will actually roar at you, which is kind of a nice little indicator. But anyway, Wall Masters are actually really cool, and if they come out of the walls and grab Link, they send him all the way back to the start of the dungeon. But the thing I think is really cool about him is like there's one bit of artwork that came out about them recently in the Hyrule Historian. I think it's like a really cool depiction of them, because like in the games they're just like floating hands, but in the Historia I think it's just a nice way of showing how they work. Right, here is our first boss, Aquamentus, which is the dragon, and he's a complete joke if you have the white sword like me and the magical shield like me, because all of his attacks are those magic projectiles that the Zola fired, and they just bounce off Link's shield. But just give him a couple of stabs, and then he drops a heart container. And in this room is your first piece of the Triforce. First one of 8. Now, travelling to the second level of the game is actually pretty easy. Pretty light travelling, to be honest. And it's near an area where we've been before. You have to go to where we sort of bombed one of the big rocks to get one of the heart containers, you know, just straight through this desert. If I can not get hit by levers, that's great, but... Now, the boomerang itself, it can take out some of the weaker enemies, but in other cases it just stuns them. But I don't think it really explained the boomerang that well. It kind of looks like a croissant though, we've got to admit, but there's an item we're getting later in the game which looks even more so like it. Anyway, just get out of there, and as you can see there's the rock I was talking about, where we had to bomb to get the heart piece. And a nice rupee. Not heart piece, but a heart container. Heart piece don't exist yet. Remember that this was where one of these secrets was, behind one of those Armo statues. I'm being really careless here. So just down from here and then to the left, but there's a moblin in the way. Okay. And straight up here for Dungeon 2. There's no real way of indicating which dungeon without going inside. But what I kind of like is that they put a different unique enemy outside each dungeon. So one, if there's only a single enemy on screen, you get a bit suspicious about any layout that's there, and two, they kind of increase the monster's difficulty, so that can be a nice little indicator. Anyway, we want to go right here to start with. And here you have our first encounter with ropes. Yes, they look like snakes, but they're ropes. Don't question it. Anyway, got a nice key for our troubles, of which we have 3 of them, thanks to us travelling through the last dungeon. See, so I think the boomerang stuns them, but don't take them out. Yeah, stuns them. I know the boomerang can take out the keys and the bits and zols, but not ropes, and there's an awful lot of rope in this dungeon. An awful lot. In fact, one little fact about the original Japanese version of this game and the American version and the European version and whatever, there's actually a lot more ropes placed in rooms in the later versions for whatever reason. And this room was apparently entirely pointless. Curses. I think I want to go all the way to the left here. No, all the way to the right here. Keep going right. Let's go through that door. And here we have the compass. I don't think I explained the compass in the last dungeon. I'm not sure if I actually picked it up. But basically it's such a minor item in this game, it's really kind of useless. You can see a little glowing dot where our map will appear when we grab the map. And basically that glowing dot is where the Triforce is. So you know the boss is in that general area, but the boss can be like any adjacent square to the Triforce. So it doesn't help out too much as compasses go. They get much better in later games. But yeah, it's not that useful here. So in some dungeons I actually don't pick it up anyway because there's no point to it. See, we have a piece of scrap paper here. We've got the map. Now then, the bombable walls can, to find bombable walls you can actually use your map, and as you can see there's like an adjacent room directly above those but no doorway, so just bomb that and it opens up. So yeah, there's a lot of places you can use it. I don't think it's usable on every adjacent wall situation, and I'm really getting low on health. Oh god. Right there we actually got the magic boomerang, which is an upgrade to the boomerang. It's kind of quick to get it in my opinion, but I'm not going to turn it down because it's a better projectile. I'm going to drink my potion, which turns it blue, which means we only have one more usage of it, but I think that was a pretty good use, taking us from half a heart all the way back to full health. Right, anyway, I'm going to equip my magical boomerang and go in here. Now, I said the last dungeon was actually the Eagle dungeon. This one is the Moon dungeon. Although, technically it could have been the Boomerang dungeon, I guess, even though it's facing the opposite way of the Boomerang sprite. But you know, you've already got 2 Boomerang items in the game, why not name a dungeon after it? Now, I can't remember the names of these for the life of them, but basically, you just want to stab each little spot of them individually. I'll try to go individually, but each of them has their own little health bar, so you know, if you're gonna focus on one portion each, then do that. See, now the boss shouldn't be too far away. I think it's just a couple of squares up. Pick up my money. Now, generally, I'd actually go through the dungeon defeating every single enemy just so I can have more money, but I don't want to waste your guys' time. And if I need to grind for money, then I will do it off screen. Because I will need to grind for money at some point, but when it gets around to that point, I will do that completely off screen so you don't have to sit through it. But for now, we're not doing too bad for money, and off the top of my head, there's only 2 items left that we absolutely need to buy. Right, here's our boss. It's a Dodongo. Now, Dodongos dislike smoke, which means you need to throw a bomb at them because when bombs explode, they leave smoke around. And if you actually don't have bombs, it's pretty difficult to beat this guy. I know it's possible because I have actually done it before, but I'd recommend that you save bombs for this guy. Like, don't go blowing through every single wall, because then you probably run out. Anyway, here's our second piece of the Triforce. So we're a quarter of the way done with recompleting the Triforce. And yeah, we're heading outside the dungeon. I think that's about it for this episode, so join me next time when we'll be taking on the third dungeon. I shall see you then.